Greetings, nerds. This is Scene and Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Paul. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. It was the Tuesday, which felt like a long ass Monday, as we
Yep,
were talking about earlier. And
indeed.
now, but in the back of my mind, I was like, well, we're gonna eat good tonight because we have a very controversial episode of television
Yes, we do.
to
Yes,
talk
we do.
about. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So controversial. It is just that's so funny to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like to start us off, Will, why don't you tell us your thoughts on the season finale of The Last of Us, season 2, episode 7, Converges. Amid the battle between Seattle's warring factions, Ellie's search draws towards a devastating confrontation.
Yeah. So controversial show, controversial episode. And I have to, I will say, I thought it was fun. I, as I messaged you Sunday night after I watched it, I think I sent you a GIF that was like, I mean, yeah, because and it wasn't it wasn't that they switched that with the ending where I was reacting to. It was just everything else. I just really felt that this episode for me was just all over the place, and it was fine, but it just kind of captured my feelings of this season. It was, there were some high points, and the rest of it was fine. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just okay. Those are no.
So
Yeah.
when you say it was all over the place, can you give me an example?
Yeah, I just felt like I felt like I was watching a bunch of cutscenes put together.
Uh-huh. That's
Um,
that's a fair point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, between we start off with with Ellie coming back from torturing Nora, and I guess part of it too is just given we wondered about this, given
Hmm.
that given that they shifted from all the action in episode 5, go to episode 6 with the flashbacks, would that interrupt the momentum that they had built with this season? And now I have to say it did. I mean, I loved episode 6. Don't get me
Hmm.
wrong. I mean, it was great. It definitely, as I said last week, it definitely reminded me uh, some of the things that clearly Pedro and Bella, when they are paired together, just amazing. I mean, and we saw that chemistry and everything last week. But when we cut back to Seattle day 3, it did interrupt the flow for me, so that when we do see Ellie coming back, and of course we start in the in the theater, and Jesse and Dina and all that, and it was, we had that scene, and then we get this book trip with the to the Scars Island, and all. It was just, I just didn't feel like it had a good narrative. It didn't have a flow to me, as far as the scenes. And then, I mean, and we'll get into some of the choices and things about Ellie, and just the decision making of all these folks, as we discuss. As you said, I mean, we definitely have a lot to chew on. But that's just sort of initial thoughts as far as why I felt it was fine, and just felt kind of choppy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a fair point. And it's and you know this because you've seen the episode and you see how it ends, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you've listened to the podcast afterwards. Like
Yeah.
it does feel like a bunch of cutscenes because it's all from Ellie's perspective, and
Mhm.
season 3 is all going to be told from Abby's perspective.
Right.
Um, and then some.
Mhm. Yeah.
I think that's where what people like, yes, season 3 will detail from Abby's perspective the 3 days in Seattle, but there's more.
Mhm.
Like they're arguably the way the gameplay works that's disjointed is that you start off with Ellie and you
Mhm.
go through this entire season and then you jump to Abby and it's very similar in the sense that it's like, well, why am I suddenly playing as the antagonist? And like, I don't care, or like, what is this? And then, but it goes past the 3 days and it goes into a lot more, and there's a lot more. But why I'm saying that is because I think overall, I mean, besides this episode just feeling like a bunch of cutscenes spliced together, which is just so valid, and I think that is the best way to describe this episode. It's this entire season is set up for next season, and
Mhm.
the payoff for all of this, you have to wait. Like the payoff in the game, you don't wait.
Right. Yeah.
So I just I mean, I love the showrunners. I think they are very smart,
Mhm.
but I don't understand. I understand their logic for how they constructed this season, but you should have shot season 2 and 3 back to back. No
Exactly.
season. You can't do it. There is you're, and from what I briefly saw in like 2 minutes, they're losing viewership with this final episode because they are have already taken some missteps. They're going to have a lower return rate because people will have forgotten
Yeah.
and B, also be like, I know, like they feel like they know what they're getting into and they've already seen it and they don't really care. Like at no point in I think the big failing is at no point in this season is there anything other than the fact that the doctor was her dad
Mhm.
that gives any kind of like, oh, well, I want to get to understand Abby more. It just and I I could have predicted this.
Mhm.
And by this I mean, of course, the events, because I know what happens, but more importantly, the overall response way back in episode 2.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
It
yeah,
just, yeah.
yeah. And I guess the other thing too, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, I guess, go ahead, go ahead. I'll
Oh,
have a
no,
thought.
go ahead. What's the other
No,
thing?
yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing for me was just, you know, no, to your reacting to your point about shooting seasons 2 and 3 together, because
Yes.
and because I think the reaction I think people are having, obviously I didn't play the game, but I
Mhm,
do, but people, it was just like the game is playing out in live action.
mhm,
People reacted very strongly, and
mhm.
but to your point, at least with the game, you can have this, you can jump right into it. A year wait is, fine. I mean, I get that. I mean, if we had to wait till, 2026, summer, that's fine.
Absolutely.
But to me, to your point, I mean, it's probably best case, we're looking at probably 2027, before we get back to the show. And
Right.
and so in TV land, that is a long time. I mean, to think of another thing that we're waiting for to drop, and not to the
Mhm.
point where it's almost like off the collective conscious for me, is Stranger Things as an analogy, as far as like having too long of a break between seasons. Um,
I thought you were gonna say, Spider-Man Across the Multiverse or whatever.
and that one too. That's another one. Those are
I've
two
given up
examples.
I've given up more on that than Stranger Things, but I totally agree with your point.
Yeah. It's just because
But
especially for us casuals who never play the game, and we, so
but so here's to play devil's advocate.
yeah.
Because we got through the season where Abby's the villain
Hmm.
because she kills off the beloved Pedro Pascal,
Yeah.
aka Joel.
Yeah.
We get the viewers get so much distance from that
Sure.
that maybe by that point it's just like I just want to return to the world. Like I
Yeah.
don't really care. And
Yeah.
also yes, it's a rehash of some events
Mhm.
because not everything that Ellie goes through, Abby goes through. I'll tell you that much.
Right.
But but that it's enough distance where it's like, oh, this feels familiar, like deja vu almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it could work to their benefit. I don't think viewership wise it's going to. I think people, what will happen, this is my prediction, what will
Mhm.
happen is people who want to return will return.
Yeah.
And then if season 3 is like, "Oh my god, you need to watch this."
Mhm.
They're gonna like, the repeat viewership,
Yeah.
like people will instantly start there'll be buzz and all of
Yeah.
that, and I think it'll get a lot of like, "Oh, I missed it, but I'm binge watching it now," or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Or there could, there'll be any number of factors, there'll be the hate
Yeah.
watch, there'll be the, "Oh, yeah, I mean, I think, and I think they were trying to give us this season a little bit of structure, with introducing Abby the way that they did in episode 1,
Mhm.
giving her backstory, changing things up to, to basically give viewers, especially for newbies like me who didn't play the game. I mean, I know the, enough about this character to be like, "Oh, okay." Give us something to get, I won't say invested, but at least interested. Um, and
Yeah.
then
Well, it's also goes beyond Abby,
yeah,
because in this episode, we get Owen and Mel.
yeah.
And and we just get a taste of it.
Mhm.
And we find out Mel's pregnant.
Yeah.
That was Owen's child. Um and but there's also like, I'm not good at geometry, but you got 3 characters, 2 are female, 1 is a boy.
Mhm.
Yep, we got another love triangle happening. So
Oh,
when Abby comes in at the
yeah,
end and she says, "You killed my friends." No, 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 no. That is the simplest way, like, to describe her dynamic with
mhm,
especially Owen. Like it, yeah. So what I'm saying is, like, all of the season, the execution of the season really will only be determined in hindsight, because
yeah,
it'll be based on whether or not they can actually deliver with season 3.
yeah. That
Because
that
if
yeah,
season 3 fails, then the entire these this season was a waste. If season 3, like, lives up to expectations and then some, like, then people are gonna return to season 2 and be like, "Oh, okay, I understand this now,"
mhm,
and all of that. I mean, granted, a lot of people probably also watched the end and it's just like, "Well, I'm gonna, because we're not getting until 2027, might as well go ahead and spoil myself."
yeah, go play the game or go watch go watch all the cutscenes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
Yeah, and so I just, before we move on from Owen and Mel, I do wanna ask you,
yeah,
um, A,
mhm.
at any point, did you think Mel was pregnant during that scene?
Um, I did not,
Okay,
actually.
good,
No,
good.
no, I did not. I mean, it definitely, it was a good, like I said, it was a good reveal. I mean,
Yeah.
that was one place where the season did do a good job. But I mean, execution of things like that, I felt this that I thought the show kept that kept their good edge there.
Right.
I
I I watched the side by side comparison
mhm,
with the cutscene
mhm,
in the game. And because I while watching it, I felt I was like, there's something off about this. And it's because in the game, what happens is as the way Owen dies is the same.
right.
But with Mel, it's not a single shot that goes through him and hits her also.
Oh,
She ends up getting into a knife fight,
right. Yeah.
like, and then Ellie stabs her,
Yeah.
and then it's revealed, and there's none of this, you gotta take the baby out.
Yeah.
But man, that was like, woo.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did like that change from the game. I,
Yeah.
I think it too, because up until that point, and really not only in an episode, but throughout, since episode 3, it's just been this vengeance quest. And and so the game version of it is definitely Ellie just completely, like, whatever vestiges of goodwill or humanity that, at least in the TV version of Ellie, hasn't been completely blinded, because at that moment she still, she felt helpless,
Well,
and
like,
also, um she did have, when after the fact, she was like, okay, we got to go back. Her
yeah.
humanity kicked in.
That happened in the game too. Like,
Okay.
don't get
Yeah,
me
well, I don't
wrong.
know. I think,
Like,
yeah. Well, yeah.
it's still played out that way. Like, Ellie's
Yeah.
Bella and Ellie, like, or just Ellie still has remorse because
Mhm.
of that realization. It hits her. I think it was, I do agree, I do think it was stronger, um, TV wise, because of the performance. And see, I'm glad you brought it up like that, because this leads me into the next thing I wanted to talk about, because m- I thought this episode was fine, but I've been fine with how everything is because I know where we're headed. But
Yeah.
something that stuck out to me and kind of drove me crazy, just just a little annoyance, is and I think this is where we're going to diverge, but I felt I felt annoyed with Ellie in this episode because it felt like in one scene, it's clear she wants to go back. She like, I'm not like you guys. I'm better than you. And then but the moment she's talking to Jesse, it's like, "Oh no, no, no. I'm going to do this, and you are not better than me because you want to go back to Jackson." Like, it felt so flip-floppy to
Mhm.
me, where I'm just like, girl, figure out, are you ready to be the villain, or are you still adamant, like it bothered me because it
Mhm.
felt like she kept contradicting herself with both her words and her actions.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so we agree. I completely,
Okay.
yeah. That was part of the frustration that I had, but I also have to remember that, okay, Ellie's a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so so she is still driven by impulse, and so so from that standpoint, I could see the irrationality of it, but it did bother me, and I guess that was the other thing too, is as far as how they've been writing the characters this season. I just feel like it's been I think that, to me, where I felt like the first season excelled over the second season is the first season. I felt like they trusted us as viewers more to connect the dots A to B to C. Here, to your point, as far as the flip-flopping and all that kind of stuff, they just they were like spoon, they were things that they would do, the exposition dump of spoon feeding us stuff, or um just yeah, just didn't. I don't feel like they trusted us as viewers to like figure out some of the things that were going on at this season. So I just felt like they insulted our intelligence as far as some of the choices of these characters making very bad decisions. To this reckless decisions, and but to your point, also flip flopping. 1 minute they're in protective mode because, oh, now I'm gonna be a daddy. Both Ellie.
Mhm.
And then next minute they're like, "Oh hell no! I'm gonna go across the Puget, go across the bay, and you know, I'm gonna take Abby out at the aquarium." Or not, or whenever the question about the whole issue of community came up.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
those were the kind of things that was just like, okay, and maybe that was
I
intentional.
so I agree with you for the most part.
Yeah.
I can't recall a scene where I felt like exposition dump. And I don't know if we were spoon-fed. It's almost from my perspective, it's as if we were not spoon-fed enough.
Mm.
Because but also, let me take that back.
Okay.
I think the problem is, and this is something I said last week. I think in season 1, yes, the through line was Joel and Ellie, but
Mhm.
there were a handful of other stories told.
Mhm.
This season, though, this was all Ellie.
Yeah.
And that's where the repetition, the frustration, the going in circles, the like, what was it? Episodes 5 and 4 felt like kind of the
Oh yeah.
same thing. And it's
Yep.
just like, okay. And when that leads me as a viewer to suddenly be like, convenience.
Yep.
Which was the other thing that drove me crazy about this episode. They're standing on top of like a skyscraper, and she's like, "Oh, I figured out the whale wheel thing. Let me just head over there."
Mhm.
Okay, tangent time. In Seattle,
Yep.
okay? I've been there a bunch of times. But there was one time when me and my dad, I think it was downtown Seattle,
Mhm.
and we were staying at a hotel, and we didn't have a rental car. And my dad says, "Hey, look, there's a Space Needle. Let's walk. We can walk to it."
Mhm.
4 hours later. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
4 hours. Okay. So the moment she did that, and then the next thing I know, she's at the beach, I'm like, hmm,
Mm.
convenience. There's no way. There's no way. And also, the just they spend so much time throughout these episodes explaining, like, you have the map. Like,
Mhm.
Seattle's a big place.
Yeah.
So it felt like in a few episodes we would maybe go a mile, and then in this episode it felt like we went down to the beach, back to the center of the city, like all over the place in the same day. And I just I'm like, no, 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 or in the same night.
Mhm.
So that like they I understand, because they really wanted this season told through her perspective, where the viewers felt like they were experiencing the emotions. Maybe this is the flaw. Viewers
Yeah.
already had so much love for Pedro and for Joel. They don't need to grieve the way, or see how Ellie is grieving or processing this and the
Mhm.
path. Like, there needed to be more stories that were told. And I think that's why a lot of people did like last week, is because yes, you had Joel and Ellie, but you also had Catherine O'Hare's character,
Yep. Go.
and
Yep.
Gail and Eugene. And
Yep.
you got a little bit of their story.
Yeah.
And the sad thing about it is, at the end of this episode, Jesse dies. And and he's one of the constants where you're just like, I want to know more about Jesse.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, this episode, I mean, this whenever Jesse and Dina, well, especially Jesse, whenever he was on the screen, I just that's when I was engaged because he shared we learned so many things about him.
Mhm.
He had, for example, when they were sitting in the bookstore or the library or there, he talked about how you know he had an opportunity to talk, go with the group to Mexico,
Yep.
and and had great 2 weeks of of his life and all that, but at the same, but he had this sense of community, and I know, and I know that what they were trying to do there with him being the responsible community leader, future leader of Jackson, versus and the whole community thing, and Ellie has in some way sort of stepped into the role that Joel did whenever he was having that conversation with Maria at the beginning of this, with the first
Mhm.
episode about community. So so I know what so I get where they're trying to paint the picture of, and even to your point, you brought up Gail. I mean, I think about Gail and Tommy's conversation at the baseball game. That
Mhm.
Joel and Ellie are basically they're very similar as far as their personality types
Yeah.
and who they are. So so whenever they had those moments during the episode, I really liked those moments because, to your point, it added depth to the characters. It felt, you know, it whenever they get into some of the story, the moral questions and more philosophical things, I think this is when the show really excels. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it does because it's what we come to expect with season 1. And it also it's you can only have so much fight action.
mhm. Yeah.
And I will say, not a single infected in this episode.
Nope. Nope. Not at
F-
all.
For better or for worse, because arguably I'm like I saw the distance between where you were, Ellie, and where that aquarium was.
Yeah.
Okay, you're telling me you didn't run into a single
Uh,
freaking infected? Bullshit.
yeah. Yeah.
But
For real.
like there's so much of that
Yeah.
that it just but there it's so I have thought in like the 48 hours since I've watched this episode. I
Mhm.
have thought. I'm like I see that I have my criticism. I know other people's criticism. But then I go back and I'm like, well, how would what would you do besides potentially shooting them back to back?
Mhm.
Like, how would you structure the season any other
Yeah.
differently? And the one thing that I kept circling back to that I we will never know if this could happen, um, or what the response would be, is I wonder if what they should have done is this should have been Abby's season.
Mm.
No Joel, no Ellie until the end.
Mhm.
Or
This
maybe arguably like like or even telling the 3 days through her perspective, and at the end like Ellie shows up and you're like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" And then they might mention or tease to like, "Well, you killed this person." And
Mhm.
but you don't see that until season 3. I just wonder if because it's such a departure from like I mean, we didn't even spend that much time in Jackson last
Yeah.
season, but
No.
still coming into this season, you're like, okay, we're gonna see life in Jackson. Oh, by episode 3, we're out of Jackson. This is
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
about Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very interesting thought. Yeah, because as you were sharing that, I was thinking like, okay, how if I were Neil Druckmann and Greg Mason, how would I how and how would I structure this? And and this is why I'm sitting here talking to you instead of being a, a showrunner of a
Right.
several successful TV shows, and Neil Druckmann, who has created a epic game twice now.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I, I don't know. I don't. Maybe if they had, and if they had more than 7 episodes, maybe they could have like done that type of structure where you have, a 3-3, you know, 3
I
3 1
see.
or something like that, or
I
4
I
4 2.
yeah, I think it needs to be more than that.
Yeah.
Because what you want is you want Abby to suddenly be like, "Oh, okay." So or what you want is to be like, "Oh, okay. We're definitely still in this post-apocalyptic world, but now we're following this other person."
Hmm.
And then as you follow the story, they become like, I'm seeing the world through their lens. This community,
Hmm.
emphasis on community, is now my community in this
Hmm.
world. And then and then by the course, because we had 10 episodes, 9 episodes with Abby,
Okay.
with Joel and Ellie.
I believe I had I think season 1 was 9 episodes, if I
9
recall.
episodes. So you almost need to give as much weight if you're gonna introduce a whole new character and a
Yeah.
whole new world and arguably community that the viewers become attached to. I will say there is one character that was not introduced this season that I am
Mm.
definitely looking forward to because they
Yeah.
are awesome. So I can't wait. And they are very critical to Abby's story.
Mm.
So,
Speaking of
like,
Abby's story, yeah. So, what did you think about? Because I know there's been some. I know some of the discourse was what was going on with Jeffrey Wright with Isaac.
yeah.
Because I just felt, again, to the point about cutscenes. This was one example where I felt like this was a scene that was just added because we have Jeffrey Wright, so we're gonna use that Jeffrey F and Wright. But overall, I just didn't know how it like played through the whole with the rest of the episode. I just seemed it
Um,
just yeah, it just seemed kind of like, okay, we're just gonna throw it in here, and then
so
or was it for to set, or was it supposed to meant
it's all
for like
set
to
up.
help set up for
Will
later?
every
Yeah,
I everything is set up.
yeah.
Everything because arguably this entire season is set up because like again it's that continuation of we only got so much of the Seraphites in the WLF
Yeah.
because only Ellie only knows so much. But
Right.
this season was told through her perspective. So we as viewers are like, these are crumbs.
Hmm.
And arguably that's why that scene in particular probably felt thrown in there because it's suddenly like Abby's not there, Ellie's not there. Actually, scratch the first part. Ellie's not there. So what are we doing? Like
Yeah.
why do we care? Like it's so random. They got away with it in the previous episodes because they used them as cold opens.
Right. Yeah. See, I was missing the cold open. I was like, I thought of you as soon as the opening credits started. I was like, well, no cold open this week.
So then when you put it that way, it's like if they had taken that scene, moved it to the
Mhm.
beginning, used it as a cold open,
I think it would
would
work
it
better.
have yeah, would it have worked better and would it like not stuck out as much?
It would have worked so much better.
Right, right. Like there I think they just made missteps with this whole idea of Ellie's perspective,
Hmm.
where I think something that arguably was so subtle in this episode that I think because of the everything else that is being talked about regarding it, I think it's lost
Hmm.
and it should have been given more time and really fleshed out was this idea that in a way Ellie betrays Dina.
Yeah.
And I say it that way because Dina, up until this point, has only been given so much of the truth. Like, yes, she knows that Ellie is immune,
Hmm.
but she never like they never made Ellie never told her the connection about that immunity, Abby's father, and
Hmm.
why Joel died.
Yeah.
Like, Joel died because of his own choice, and
Yep.
he said it himself, he would never not make that choice.
Yep.
That will always be his choice, and
Hmm.
that's something that or no, Tommy says in this episode, is that they made their choices
Hmm.
after Ellie in cold blood kills a pregnant lady. Um,
Yeah.
just pregnant, very much in cold blood.
Yeah.
And so again, you have these characters making choices, but it's that idea like I'm the hero and I'm right because I'm doing this for me and community and all, like my family. But then it goes back to, well, is your family more important than my family?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and that was Jesse's whole point, and that's why I think you and others, like, we wanted more Jesse, or he felt like his scenes were like so good because it was more of the rationale and like a grounding force in this very chaotic
Yeah. He was the
mess.
grown up. Yeah. He was the grown up in the room because
Yeah.
he he even told because you know Ellie all this time thought that possibly he was one of the few votes that she received, and then he's like, no, no,
And I think, and to go back to Dina, like, she finds out the truth, and even she's now very subtly second guessing, but we don't get enough of it. Like,
no.
it feels too quick with her, like, just like, for argument's sake, it was too quick for that kiss.
Yeah.
Like it was like, "You're not even gonna question this immunity thing?" Like
Yeah. Yeah.
like you don't have any questions about that? But now, like, so that could have been fleshed out more.
Mhm.
Um, the other thing is the Tommy of it all.
Mm.
Like, I wonder if we had if they didn't go for the Jesse saves Dina and Ellie in the nick of time because they followed them. And we actually, like, went back and forth between Ellie and Dina and then Jesse and Tommy on their trail.
Yeah.
Like, that, and then we could have gotten some more insight into Tommy's whole grief process,
Mhm.
and also this whole talk about, like, but is what Ellie doing selfish?
Yeah.
Or, like, and that's not really the moral dilemma, but, like this idea, like, she's seeking vengeance
Mhm.
versus trying to protect Jackson.
Yeah.
Like and yeah, it's just, but she also, there's a guilt there
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
I think they, again, the complexity of Ellie, I think, instead of being viewed and being explained in a very delicate way that allowed all of the different layers to seep through, it came off as being very messy, very sporadic,
Mhm.
and just like clear vengeance,
Yeah.
or I'm a scared little girl who misses her dad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's too much. And I think that that's why this season is being viewed through this lens of chaoticness and just like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
What are we doing? Yeah, what are we doing?
And why
Yeah,
do we care?
yeah, yeah. And I guess that's just it. I mean, I guess yeah, maybe I think that's the core. I just like, why should I care? Why should I
Mhm.
be invested in a vengeance story?
Yes.
And I've seen, and we've seen it, and part of it is probably, I'll call a spade a spade. I mean, I think there is some gender bias towards that, because I think if this were a male character, I think some of us, including me, would probably, I mean, would probably view it a little bit differently, give it a little bit more grace, I should say. I still would probably, at the end of the day, be like, what, why should I care? But I do think there is some element of that also.
Oh, I never thought about that, but that's interesting. That Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and also, do you think, not just sexism, but homophobia?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
I think both of those lenses. I mean, yeah. I mean, you just look at the discourse. I've been. I mean, it's slowly creeping back into social media
Yeah.
just to see what the discourse is about these shows, and I think there is some element of that.
Yeah.
I think that but um, and so, but also, like I said too earlier while we're recording, I do, I also have to remind myself too that this is a 19-year-old kid, whether it's a male or a
Yes.
female, and so they're going to they're reacting in a way that a teenager would versus
Yes.
and so when the Jessies of the world or the Marias of the world come up, because Maria was also the same way too. She's like with the council, she's like, I got a bigger, we have to like make sure we got to keep all our resources here in Jackson because we just like had the horde attack here. So I'm glad, to your, I know you brought up we spent time in Jackson. That actually, it was a very smart thing of them to like put
Mhm.
that in the show
Yes.
because it gives, because it 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 it, it adds to the discussions that we had with Jesse and Ellie in this episode about community and the stakes as far as why this was a bad fucking idea to go off and do this.
Yeah. And why Tommy didn't go with her.
Exactly. Yeah,
It's a forgiveness thing too, because
mhm,
it's like in the back of your mind, you're like, "Where's Tommy?"
yeah,
Which I would like them to explain about why they didn't utilize Tommy more.
mhm,
Um, but maybe they're saving some stuff, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But I do feel like, and I can see why we spent majority of the time with Jesse because this, like, was gonna be his last episode.
yeah,
So, you
oh yeah,
really wanted to send him off well,
yeah,
and you still got Tommy to play with, so
yeah. I
arguably.
mean, yeah.
But
Well, since
I
Jesse said he found out he was going to be a father, I was like, oh, he's dead. I don't need a cutscene to
yeah,
see that
yeah,
was going.
you don't need to know.
Yeah.
But I, I so speaking about, like, why do I care or anything?
Yeah.
Because I was very excited when I saw the stadium, I
Oh
have
yeah.
to say.
Yeah. That was
It
a great
is
shot.
and then that triggered so many there is a sequence that I am, and you know me well,
Mhm.
this is an action sequence, and this is gameplay, and I am betting they're gonna do it, and it's just I will say this, a part of me, as much as I love, Caitlin Dever,
Mhm.
I wish, like, for this specific sequence, I wish Florence Pugh was cast.
The physicality of it. Oh yeah.
Just because of what she did with Thunderbolts, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, she would have had
Mhm.
a field day with this sequence," and so
Mhm.
I I seeing that stadium,
Yeah.
it's just like Okay, we saw like 10% of Seattle, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, dicey. Like there is some very cool characters, as I've previously teased, and
Mm,
sequences that are in store beyond just the vengeance and the seeing things through Abby's perspective. Like there I feel like in season 3, we are gonna go back and get some more of those basics and get more of those other stories that feed into your main overall storyline.
mm,
I understand, like, I get why they did it this way. Um, but at the same time, I feel like it was a missed opportunity to put back on that, well, this worked this way in the game, but the game players didn't even like that. So maybe we should have tweaked it a little bit more.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Speaking of which, there was one thing I guess I don't I think I read this somewhere. But I guess the scene with the to your point about setting things up and the gameplay, I guess the scene with Ellie was on the island with the Seraphites.
Mhm.
That was supposed to be in the game, but it actually got cut out.
Mm.
So I guess they were able to utilize it for this in this episode. Um, because something you said earlier that whenever we were talking about Isaac and um, you what the things are going on with the WLF and the war there. So I mean, so I guess they added to your point. They added this scene here just so they could have it, show the Seraphites, show what was going on, probably what was going on with Abby. Maybe
Well,
wasn't
it
she? Yeah, I mean, I might be. I don't want to. I don't want to say anything for folks. I think I think I know possible something, so I don't want to say anything. So I don't want
okay,
to spoil
a
things. Yeah.
spoiler alert, say what you wanna say.
All right, let me spoiler alert. So spoiler alert. I want to say was Abby like captured by the Seraphites and she escaped prior to her getting to the theater and discovering the crew.
So people have pointed out that if you look closely at Abby, at her throat, there is a clear scar there
Yeah. Hmm.
from a rope. So
Yeah.
so that I think that those who care have probably seen a bunch of people point that out. So I can so when you brought up that scene and saying how it was cut from the game originally, well, I don't know if it's set up so much as, again, the point is to try to do as much mirroring as possible between
Hmm.
these 2.
Hmm.
So I think with Ellie and inserting the scene where she fails horribly on the boat, I don't know why
Yeah.
she got back on it,
Yeah.
only to be washed ashore, and then she gets pulled away by not the WLF. She's viewed by the Seraphites as a member of the WLF.
Hmm.
She's viewed as part of Abby's community.
Yeah.
Like there are so many similarities between
Yeah.
these 2 people that
Yeah.
I think it just furthers that. Um, and yeah, there's a reason, and you could also make the argument that if you go back and rewatch Owen and Mel's conversation, they hint. I mean, Mel says
Hmm.
that would put you behind enemy lines. We know the
Yeah.
enemy's the Seraphites. Like
Hmm.
Abby is clearly in a very dangerous place
Yeah.
because Owen is going to risk it all to go after her. So
Yeah.
now what she's doing there and how she got there, that has yet to be revealed. But
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So so there I mean, I really think you hit the nail on the hammer when you said it just felt like a bunch of cutscenes because it is. Because they can't flesh out these things because it's
Mhm.
all through it's then that's telling Abby's story.
Yeah.
And so I think so. Maybe people got curious and are get as time goes past to get more curious about like what did that mean? What was going on here? I
Yeah.
mean, like you pointed out before, they have Jeffrey Wright.
Yep.
Why did Jeffrey Wright sign up for like 2 scenes?
Yeah.
No, he's he's got so like it's a different story. But something that I think arguably did work to an extent, even though frustrating, even though a bit redundant, is that the same choice that Joel made at the end of season 1
Hmm.
is just ricocheting and reoccurring
Yeah.
in Seattle.
Yep.
And it's not one choice, it's choices
Hmm.
and it's people.
Yeah.
Um and so to an extent they are building that. Um there's just some other structural and creative choices that argumentatively they could have made differently and could have done better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And season 3 will tell us how much season 2 worked.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say after our conversation tonight, uh my uh score for this episode definitely goes up from fine to it was really actually it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that the initial watch, like, it's like, "Oh, okay, that was fine." But the more you dissect it and it's like, "No, actually that was a good episode of TV."
Hmm.
It just the season overall leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of and it's not, yeah, it's the ending, but it's you could have that ending could have worked just like in any other TV show. It's all of the events leading up to it.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
it's like people to walk away and say, "Yeah, the ending sucked." Well, you only feel that way
No.
because the buildup, like, totally it left you in this other way, so
No, no, because I mean, to me, the ending worked great for me. I mean, that was the after being frustrated for like however many 40 minutes or 45, however long it was. I was just done, and then and then we Abby wakes up, and I'm like, we get that amazing scene at the stadium, and I'm like, okay, I was like, it's like I get it, so for me, it was just like, oh yeah, it was just leading up to it, but as I said, really dissecting it and really discussing all the disparate parts that were like pulled together, in this episode. Yeah, it was good. I mean, I even I said it was fine, but it was good. It was a good episode.
Mhm.
Just at the end of the day, I think just overall, um, like we said earlier this season, episodes 4 and 5 just kind of felt like we were spinning our wheels, but um, I'm still on the train. I'm not, but I just wish we could get the third season sooner than we'll probably get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, um, it'll be here quicker than we realize.
Yeah, yeah, it will. It will.
It always happens that way.
Yeah.
Um, I do just wanna say as a closing thought, to quote Abby, "I let you live and you wasted it."
Yep.
Which which
Yeah.
all I hope everyone, when she said that, instantly went back to when she was talking to Joel, and
Hmm.
Joel said, "I saved you," and she said in response, "What life? What
What
life
life?
did you save?
Hmm.
Like what life do I have?" So
Yeah.
so it's so again, the mirroring, albeit subtle and disconnected, it is happening. So we shall flesh it all out in 2027, if
Yeah.
not later.
Yeah. Speaking speaking of 2027, if not later, before we close out, any other things on Last of Us, or can we move to quick
That
nerd
was
news
a
item?
great like go tie into this Avengers stuff. So I don't know
Yes.
why you
Yes,
stopped here.
that's exactly where I was going, because we did get news that the Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars is going to be pushed back for I guess 7 months each. I guess the um Doomsday originally was going to premiere in May 2026, but now Star Wars has that month all to itself, because Doomsday is now going to be December 18, 2026, and Secret Wars will now be a year later, December 17, 2027, because it's all about box office. Because that's December is the month that you're gonna make all your money now.
Oh, I thought it was because of CGI.
Well, I'm sure that's probably it too. But but I mean, I mean, remember, I think, what was it? No Way Home didn't it come out in December? It was like a $2 billion movie or something like that. So, or $1.9 million movie, $1 billion movie. So, this is all box office, to me. I think
Yeah,
why they're pushing it back. Yeah, yeah,
I think their box office. There's so many things, but where did they originally have it? They originally had it in May, right?
in May. Yeah, usually
Yeah,
that was like, yeah,
Endgame was in May.
yeah, yeah,
So you could say box office, but like to me, it's just like, I don't know, because May is a pretty much a box office month as well in the
yeah,
past. So
yeah,
so like you can moving it later, it's not the best sign. Like no studio ever wants to push these things back,
yeah,
which I'm just like, you guys do it so constantly and consistently. Why don't you just get better ideas of when you like
well,
stop over promising?
yeah. But I mean, I think, but the thing is, everything is so scheduled, and they don't like lay these release. There's not a random thing, I think, as far as these release dates. I mean, because they are filming,
Then
but
why do they keep getting delayed?
I'm telling you, I
That's
think it's
my point.
money. It's
But
money.
that's okay. Okay, so The Rock comes out and announces Black Adam in
Well,
2014.
yeah.
And
Well, yeah, that's
oh,
not a good
how
example.
many Star Wars projects have been announced, canceled, or delayed?
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
like
yeah,
that's my point. I
true.
understand your point,
Yeah.
but I also, considering that May has also proven to be very successful for box
Yeah.
office.
It is. True.
I just I think, like, I don't think it's random, but
Yeah.
I think whoever is deciding these dates, they suddenly got stupid.
Yeah. Well,
There's
I mean,
something there's something in the water over there where suddenly they're not as good as determining the dates as they once were. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. Well, also, I think the other thing too is, I think the old way of like releasing films is just, we used to know, like, yeah, May. There are like certain tentpole months. Obviously, May is one of them, because it is the lead kickoff to the summer. You do have that midsummer blockbuster. Uh,
July.
July. And then December now is like, cause it's Christmas. So,
Yeah.
those are that way Star Wars now, because Mandalorian and Grogu is still currently scheduled for May 2026. So
Mhm.
now Star Wars has that month all free, and to do its thing. And now,
Well, you should have led with that, because
yeah,
that makes more sense in terms of property wise for
yeah,
Disney.
yeah, and
Like,
yeah,
why would
exactly.
you release those 2 movies to compete against each other? They're
Yeah,
both yours. So
yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, that makes way more sense in
yeah,
terms of box office and
yeah,
money.
yeah,
Uh, the other thing that I don't really wanna get into, but, Will has it on here, so I will say it. Harry Potter cast little kids.
Yeah. I, I was torn because I'm kind of done with the whole Potter thing. I mean, maybe I'm just done with J.K. Rowling, and we don't have to, and we can just leave it there. Folks can take it how they want. I think that is
Yep.
fair, but I just hope the internet's or sorry, I guess for me, the other thing too is the internet is just being the internet. People are just being dicks already with the whole Hermione thing. So, I mean, I guess I'm just exhausted. I mean, there's so many there's so many things in the world right now. Can we just 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 enjoy properties for what they are?
Nope.
But no, we can't. So this is why we can't have nice things.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly. That
yeah,
is perfect way to end it. But you know what? You know what? Don't worry,
yeah.
July will be here.
Yes,
We're
yes, I
gonna
will.
so I don't know why we go through these spouts of this is why we can't have nice things, and then we get nice things, and then we go
Yes, yes.
back, we revert.
Yeah,
That's
we
what
revert. We
happens.
revert.
Um, all right. Well, on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will M Polk on all the socials. That's WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me there too at SJ Belmont, SJBLMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at Scene and Nerd, on Blue Sky at Scene and Nerd, and friend us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and threads at scene_n_nerd, and visit our website, www.sceneandnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, geek out. You're welcome.